Kate Towle has written a novel. It's called Sweet Burden of Crossing. It's about two Minnesota college students, young women, who meet in the 1980s.
The two girls have a mysterious bond that they don't always understand themselves, but
one is white, the other is black. It's about race, cross-cultural assumptions, adjustments, and family. It has resonance in 2021.
A number of my black friends have said to me, look, Kate, this is on white people now to do your own work around race. And I've taken that challenge on. And I believe that it's time for us as white people to really internalize these issues and have means of talking about them in community and doing our own reflection and talking about our own feelings and how we can dislodge the white supremacy that lurks in us.
Sweet Burden of Crossing is Kate's first novel. It deals with the presumptions that fog understanding and empathy. I've known Kate and her husband Jeff Towle through the Peace and Social Justice Writers Group that meets at the Loft Literary Center in Minneapolis. Kate's novel is informed from life, beginning with her childhood.
I was one of those children blessed to be in many situations where I was the only white child.
As a grown-up, she works with schools and service groups to foster racial equity and peaceful fixes for our fractured world.
So the novel is about a couple of young college students, and they're coming of age. They're starting to understand their own identity, their own history, who they are. And they're at a Midwestern college. And it's about Chris, the white narrator, and her very, very close friend, Ricky, who's African American, and how their relationship got started, and also how it developed, and how through that development, Chris learned about the real struggles of African American people in our country. It's set in 2004 and also in the 1980s. But I also bring it back within the context of what happened here in the tragedy with George Floyd. Well, I'd like to read to you from part of the book where the girls are really just getting to know each other. One of the ways that we get to know people in college is we ride share. You know, if we have to take a ride home for spring break. And I'm going to read to you the chapter called Going Back to Indiana. So when the day comes to drive 500 miles with a black girl I don't know, I'm guided by a queer and compelling obedience. There's something about Ricky that draws me to her. When she enters a space, it becomes more alive, as a room does when drapes are pulled open and morning light pours in. I want to both impress her and win her trust. So I'm filled with anticipation. I don't want to say or do something that might offend her. I pull up to Umoja House, our campus residence for black students where Ricky lives. She's outside talking with two of her friends while she waits for me. When I pull up, one of her housemates points at me and raises her eyebrows. Ricky leans in close to her and says something. All three of them turn at once to stare at me in my red Pinto wagon. I open my car door and get out, take a deep breath, and walk towards them. They draw back in, and I can't hear what they say. Good morning, Ricky. Hi, everyone. I'm Chris. Ricky's the only one to turn toward me. This is all I'm bringing, she says, and points at an old green duffel bag with a windbreaker thrown over it. We've got the whole car to ourselves, I say, my attempt to be lighthearted. Would you like to put your bag on the floor or in the back? The back's fine, she says. Her friends continue to look away from me, and I see Ricky's not going to help with an introduction. Hope you all have a great spring break, I say. Looks like it's going to be a beautiful day here in Minnesota. It feels so small, but in my awkwardness of being the outsider, it's what comes to mind. Ricky's friend, who doesn't look up at all when I approached, turns to me now and says, "You too." The friend who raised her eyebrow looks down at her feet, waiting for me to leave. I slam the hatchback, Then we settle back next to each other in the front seats and hit the road. I look at her intermittently and smile, trying to break the ice, absorbing her fragrance, an earthy blend of patchouli and musk. It reminds me of an import boutique near campus that carries oils, beads, and fabrics from India. Her hair is braided into elegant, twisted coils, a sign of her life and artistic spirit beyond the pool. For the first half hour, we say very little. I muse to myself that our silence is, in part, a complex maze of cultural assumptions, not easily navigated, and I let that be okay. At our first pit stop, Ricky needs a tampon, and it's odd that I have one because I don't have my period. Giving it to her eases things. Not long after, we both see a billboard of dancing cigarettes, look at each other at the same time, and laugh. Ricky doesn't smoke, thank God. She's a much easier passenger than I'd imagined, and it turns out we're on the same restroom schedule. As we stop in Eau Claire to grab coffee at a truck stop, Ricky sees my eyes are drooping. Mind if you read some of my book, Catcher in the Rye, to help keep you awake? Go ahead, I say. It'll make the time go faster, too. The two girls have a mysterious bond that they don't always understand themselves, but the thing that they share is father loss due to trauma. One has lost her father to death. The other has lost her father to incarceration. It's a tale of how fathers influence their daughters. Each girl had only a small amount of time with her father, and yet that influence was very rich over time. The book takes some risks to go back in time and look at political occurrences that were happening and, if you will, some of the political dynamics that were leading up to our having a first African-American president and questioning if that could even happen. In the book, the characters are really asking themselves, could we have a black president in the White House?
Good afternoon, everybody.
What really has influenced me is I've watched white students and white activists want to grow in their awareness and their capacity as white allies, aspiring white allies. And I've noticed that there aren't any narratives for us as white people that show us with any level of humility or competence or capacity for growth. And so white students would be in classes about cultural history, or they would be in cultural affinity groups. And the books that are available, which are very good, by Robin DiAngelo on white fragility and such, but these are how-to books. And they're not telling how to do this work from a place of story, which has always been a most powerful means of bringing the story into our hearts from an emotional perspective. My father is a big part of this book, and before he died, he was reading the book To Kill a Mockingbird. And so that book has always influenced me, and in fact, I wrote a court scene based on my own awareness of that novel. I was very, very blessed to have that example, and part of the story tells us that our children are watching everything we're doing, even if only for a short time. And we need to be watching what we do. We need to be watching how we're acting, because that's going to be modeled and internalized by our children.
That's all for now. We'll see you next time.
Democratic Visions is handcrafted by volunteers from Eden Prairie, Hopkins, Minnetonka, Edina, and Bloomington. Watch us on select cable systems and on our YouTube channel. This is Carol Sundstrom.